Hi, and welcome to another lesson in our series of AutoCAD training. In this first lesson, we'll take a look at the menu system and the initial setup workspace. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is going to be a short, sweet video just on the general interface when you open up AutoCAD 2021 for the first time. So when you open up, you're faced with this screen here. I just want to show you before we go any further. There are some sort of training videos in here that you can access. If you click on there, you can see there's a sort of more in-depth user interface tour there, and a few other little videos that you might be interested in. But if we left click on create and go back to create. So what you can face here is these recent documents here. So you may not have these, obviously these are just ones maybe I would have opened or something like that on the screen. And you've got this get started option here. You'll notice up here, all this is grayed out and isn't selectable just as yet. We've no drawings open. So until I actually open up something, this remains sort of unselectable when you launch AutoCAD first. So just to kind of run through a few things. So we'll open up a drawing just so we can get access to this ribbon here at the top. So let's start over here. So getting started is probably the easiest place to start. It's kind of big landing area for you to kind of click on. And if you click on here, it'll actually open up the last template that you used. So when you open up for the first time, you might just kind of come down here and just select, as I was saying in class, the AutoCAD ISO.DWT one. That's the one we'll be using all the time. So it's the metric sort of ISO standard. If you're in the US or whatever, it's ACAD.DWT is the normal English feet and inches one. So we're going to be using that. So once you click on that at this stage, then it'll open up that drawing. Then you can go back to the Start tab at any stage and here. And then once I've got that first one open, as I said, this Start drawing will actually use the last template used. In our case now, it's going to be the ACAD ISO one. Also, if you click on this little plus here, that'll create a new drawing, again based on the last template that you used, which again is our ACAD ISO.DWT file. If you come up here, so in AutoCAD, you're going to find there's 3, 4, 5 different ways of doing the same thing. Up here, we get a little new. If you hover over the icon long enough, you'll get a little help pop-up screen there. So I click on new on that. We get this option here, and this allows us to kind of pick our template. So if you had a custom template, you could go and browse to wherever that was stored. But again, if we just kind of click on that and open that, or you could double click on it, and it'll open up another template. You notice the name's 1, 2, 3, so it's just throwing any old handle on it at all until you actually save it. So none of these are actually saved until you click on the save as dialog box. I'm not going to just save anything just yet. So they'll just kind of keep throwing on the next number on the list. So don't panic if you don't see 1, 2, 3. So if you've been playing around with it, you might be up on 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. So I'm going to click on the X there just to kind of close a few of these here. So this is probably the handiest way. You can go up here as well, as I said, 2 or 3 different ways. So you can click X there to close it that way, but obviously it's kind of much easier here on that. Kind of click there. So if I kind of keep that one open so we can access these menus here, but I'll go back to the Start tab. So that's that. So from then on, you can kind of just click on this Start option here and you'll know that it was that one. Unless obviously later on in the course when we create our own templates, we might want to kind of go in and select one. So just to go through the menu system then, up here you've got this big red A, which is the application menu. And as we move across here then, we've got the quick access toolbar. It's fairly small just at the minute, but if I go to drawing 1, you see it kind of expands a little bit. Now you might see this drafting and annotation when I'm going to do that on a different video, but if you click this little drop down arrow here, you see Workspace. So I'm going to recommend you switch that on because I'm going to get you to utilize that at some stage. As I say, I'll cover that in a later video. So turn that one on. And another one is that I've actually got turned on at the minute. You'll see it show menu bar, but if I hide that, you'll see it for the first time when you open up show menu bar. I kind of tend to turn that on. I'm old school, so I kind of use a few commands in there. I go in there for a few items. But as I say, it's kind of really old school. I think everybody kind of uses the ribbon or keyboard shortcuts at this stage. That's just me. And you will find that, anyone you talk to uses things slightly different and sets it up slightly different. That's why I want you to kind of turn this on so we can eventually get setting up to what you feel comfortable with doing. So don't necessarily follow what I'm doing. It's what you feel comfortable is the best. So as I say, so we've got the application menu, the quick access toolbar. There are a few additional commands, and you can customize it a little bit further on that. We'll look at that later on. Then coming across the top, you can see you got the drawing name here. Again, it's just drawing1.dwg. It's not actually saved yet. I haven't saved anything yet. So it's just giving it its default name. Then come along here, you got a little help menu. And then you can come right over here. I just skip past this. We won't sign into that. But if you're on a subscription, yeah, it's probably best to sign in on that because this is the educational version. You'll be okay with that. So over here then you can restore down, restore up, and minimize AutoCAD there with that. And then up here you can close. Another way of closing it, clicking out of this X will close AutoCAD altogether on that. I'm not going to do it just at the minute. Over here we've got the Viewcube. Really kind of most useful for 3D, but we will be kind of looking at the WCS and the home button a little bit in the 2D CAD, but really ideally mostly used for 3D. We will use it a little bit, but again, I'll show you that later on that. And then we've got the ribbon here running across the top. And then in the ribbon, we've got these little panel titles that have additional commands. If you see a little black arrow there, you come down and you can see there's little additional commands on that. And then running across the top, we've got various tabs that we'll get into for different commands and that. I will try and encourage you to use keyboard shortcuts as much as possible. Really, really kind of useful and will really speed you up. So if you're starting out in AutoCAD, I suggest you kind of pick them up as you go along. It's easier that way to kind of get into keyboard shortcuts. If you try and get into it sort of at a later stage, I find people tend not to do it. But if you're starting out, just when you're learning the line command, L for line, it's so easy to kind of pick them up slowly like that as you're building up your skills, rather than trying to learn it at a later stage. You'll just not do it if you don't. And honestly, if you're into video games or like that, everybody knows keyboard shortcuts. Way to go. So there's that little ribbon. Down here then we've got the UCS icon and display origin. So that's down here. We'll again talk about that a little bit later. We've got our command window down here as well, and you can kind of expand that up. But I suggest you kind of keep it down to one line if you have it on at all. You can also expand it there using that little arrow that. And then your screen may look a little bit bottom here at the status bar, may look a little bit, different at the bottom here on that. There is a three little lines customization option here. We'll go in, and as we go through the course, I'll show you a few things that pop on and pop off that might be useful to you. One thing that's not sort of on by default is these coordinates, and you might like to kind of have them on. So if you kind of come up here to the very top, you can kind of click on coordinates and they'll appear there. So you can see we're in a metric, so we've got 2 decimal places on that using our metric ISO. Down here then we've got our model tab and our print tab for our layout sheets. So there are little sort of sheets for printing out. We're going to focus on the model tab at the start of this course as well on that. And then obviously then there's the graphics cursor area here right in the middle. Okay, so that's just a quick run around that, and as I say, we'll get into a few more details in a later video.